I would like to welcome all of you to Darien Library. I see a lot of new faces and some familiar faces, and we are just so happy to have you. My name is Erin Shea, and I'm the head of adult programming here at the library. I'd also like to briefly mention that programs at Darien Library are made possible by our annual Friends of the Library campaign. So thank you so much for your continued support to make programs like these and our collections available to the community. I would also like to thank Rosanna Nissen of Barrett Bookstore. That is our local independent bookseller in town, and she was the one who coordinated tonight's event. And I encourage you, when you start your holiday shopping this year, to support local businesses. And the other person I just wanted to thank as well is Sarah Eagle, who's here now from Random House. She is tonight's guest publicist, and she's just been really excellent in helping us for this event. Tonight we have a very, 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 very special guest. I feel so honored, in fact, to call her a guest here, because I think we can all agree that we have felt like we've been a guest in her kitchen for many, many years. Whether she's telling us stories about her toddler, Jacob, and his picky eating habits, or singing the praises of the humble white button mushroom, or admitting her failures at roasting baby artichokes, her blog, SmittenKitchen.com, is welcoming, comforting, conversational, and I'm going to use the word delectable. I can tell you with certainty that every single time my roommate comes into the kitchen with some delicious vegetable, and I ask her, "Where did you find this recipe?" she says, "It's Smitten." I can also tell you that, what I was going to tell you is that the most recent time that happened, there were the Dijon braised Brussels sprouts, so highly recommended. I'm so pleased to welcome our speaker tonight to speak about her first cookbook, which has been bringing out her fans in droves. And as you can see, tonight is no exception. Recently, my friend attended her event at Politics and Prose in Washington, D.C. So I asked her, I was like, send me full report. I want to hear how it goes. I want to know everything about the event. So she sent me an email the next day, and this is what she said. This is a direct quote. "She is so sweet. I was the very last person in line after 3.5 hours of signing, and she still let me tell her about how I broke my KitchenAid making pretzel dough. And then she was like, we'll do this next time. Egg wash this, baking time this. She has some damn patience." Please join me in welcoming to Darien Library, Ms. Deb Perelman.
Hi. I don't know what happened. When I left Boston, I had a voice and something happened along the way. But anyway, it's so nice to be here. And there are so many people that I know here tonight who are going to heckle me. So I hope you guys are really nice and can, cancel them out. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm late. There was an accident on the way over here. There's about a 14-foot truck, and then there's a 12-foot overpass, and it was crunched in there. And we got into this raucous debate over whether we thought the guy was just going to wait till he got fired tomorrow, or did he just hop out of the car and just say, I'm just going to go, or do you think he quit? I mean, what do you think happens there? Anyway, it's probably not that funny, but it was kind of crazy to see. Anyway, so sorry I'm late, but I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for having me. And am I not even talking into the mic? Hi. Does that work? Is that better? Okay, now you can hear my crackly voice. Even better. Hi. So I'm really excited to be here because we are all book dorks in my family, including my toddler. He loves Libides. And he likes to tell us that he's reading books. They're usually upside down, but he's just got this great fervor for books, and we are all book people, so it's really fun when I get to do something at a library. Anyway, SmittenKitchen.com is 6 years old this fall. If it was a person, it would be a first grader, and it would be talking back, which I guess is about right. I'm often asked how I got the site started, and I drag my feet and I try to avoid the question like, hey, did you guys see the stuff over there? Because I know bloggers are supposed to like to talk about themselves, but oh God, is there anything worse than listening to somebody talk about their life story? I mean, I'm 36. I mean, my life story is pretty much like everything's fine, and then I wrote a book. Okay, let's go sign books. So I'm not gonna drag this out. We're gonna do a short talk, and what I love to do though is I love to answer questions, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you have except for one, which is when I'm gonna have another child, because I know my mom put you up to it, and I'm not falling for it. Busted. What did you make? My mom's really tired of me talking about her when she's not here. Anyway, well, so Smitten Kitchen is 6 years old, and when I registered the domain name in the summer of 2006, I kind of thought it was going to be a 6-month endeavor. I read a lot of food blogs back then. There were really quite a few, and I read The Amateur Gourmet and Homesick Texan and The Wednesday Chef, and they all have an angle. They all have something that they talk about. Like one person is, he doesn't know how to cook and he's trying to be a gourmet, and the other one misses her Texan food, and the other one would cook her way through Wednesday food section article clippings, and I didn't have an angle. I just like to cook. And so I imagined that it would last about 6 months, because that's how long most blog endeavors last. But I remember very specifically what I was trying to do with the site. And I remember it was very early on, probably I'd been married for about a year, and I wanted to make a yellow layer birthday cake. I might have even been for our friend Ashley, by the way. Sorry, my friends. And I wanted to make this yellow birthday cake, and I didn't have a go-to recipe for it. Those like vanilla, buttery, thick layer. Okay, so these are good things. Okay. I wanted to, but I didn't really know where to start. I didn't have a go-to recipe, and so I went to Google, and I asked Google what the very best birthday cake was, and it returned to me 1,600,070 zillion results, which is great if you and your 128 best friends want to test 2 recipes a day for the rest of your life. You might come to a very good conclusion of what recipe is the best if you still have your teeth and everything. And I didn't know where to start, so I picked the first recipe, and it was okay. It was fine. It used shortening. Ooh. And I kind of prefer cakes with butter in it. And it used milk, and I kind of prefer cakes with buttermilk. And from there, I just started tweaking and fussing, and eventually got to this place where I was like, this is the cake that I think you all should be making instead. And I don't want you to go to Google. I want you to make my cake. And so that was what I was thinking about when I started SmittenKitchen.com. I wanted to share what I considered my go-to recipes for everything. Ones that were worth your time, ones that wouldn't send you to a specialty store for crazy ingredients, and the ones that would not use too many dishes. And so that's where I was at. At the time, however, I was an IT reporter. I promised to bore you guys today. Let me tell you about my day's IT reporting. Who wants to hear more about information technology? Because I've got some juicy stories. I actually don't. I have no idea what I was doing as an IT reporter. I know absolutely nothing about IT, and I was a terrible reporter. I'm sure if there is anybody who I've ever worked with before, they'd be really polite right now about it, but they were probably like, what is she doing here? This was one of the many iterations of my so-called career thus far. I've been a barista. I have scrawled happy birthday on bakery cakes. I have been an art therapist. I once had a job for a couple weeks where I was cold calling people trying to sell them printer ribbons. I was very bad at that too. So I've had a lot of kind of weird jobs, and I haven't done any of them really well, but I also didn't really know how to cook particularly well. I mean, I knew what I wanted to make, and I also really wanted to have this website where I would have a lot of photos on it, but I don't know what any of the buttons on my camera do. And I didn't really know how to use Photoshop. And I'm not like the best writer. In fact, this entire talk so far has been one long run-on sentence. So maybe it was a little improbable and a little illogical that I decided that I was going to start a website. I also had this other situation, which is that this is about the size of my entire kitchen. I'm probably being a little generous with the arm span here. So I've got this tiny kitchen, and I'm a terrible writer, and I can't take photos, and I decided I'm going to start this website, and it was going to last 6 months, and that brings us up to today. Well done. But I do remember that there was this point about a year and a half into it where I said to my husband, I'm like, honey, I am really bad at my day job. And I really like this website, and I want to do this full time. Can I quit my day job? And he said, no. Please? No. That went on for about 6 months until I won. And it was one of the scariest things I've ever done, was just quitting my job to go be a blogger. In fact, even pretty much until about a week ago, if you asked me what I did, I'd be like, I just do some stuff. Don't worry. It's just too complicated to explain what I do for a living. But it was this really great thing because it bought me this freedom to really work on whatever I wanted to. It's like getting a grant for whatever you want to do. I get to wake up each morning and cook whatever I want to each day. Maybe not today. I was in Boston when I woke up, but it's okay. So let's say you have a dinner party tonight and you make some roast chicken for your friends and family, and you're really good at making roast chicken, so everyone's like oohing and eyeing over it, and what they'll probably say is, you should open a restaurant. You're really good at making roast chicken, and I think you are very good at making roast chicken too, but I want you to know that I do not think you should open a restaurant. That is a terrible reason to open a restaurant. And if you are blogging and you've got a food blog, pretty much within a week or two of your first post, somebody's going to say, you should write a cookbook. And I just want you to know that I think it's a terrible idea. I thought the idea of writing a cookbook was like the worst idea in the entire world. You guys are like, what are we doing here? Why am I here? I just thought it was a terrible idea. I thought it was a terrible idea because I love doing this website. I love the format of the web. I love being able to go on as long as I need to about a recipe, which, as you guys can tell, is pretty long sometimes. I love being able to use 15 photos if a post needs 15 photos. I love being able to have conversations with readers. I mean, this was such a huge part of the site. It still is, where people ask me questions and I answer them, and it's amazing how they actually think that I know what I'm doing. But maybe in the course of answering these questions, I became somebody who sort of knew I could at least answer them. And it made me such a better cook, and you can't do that with a cookbook. You can't have that same conversation. And so I just basically said there was no way I would ever write a cookbook. The end. But then I'm probably not the first person who's ever said this, but I became pregnant in this early 2009, and I'm sure again, other people have said this, but it kind of shifted my paradigm. I was like, my son's not going to know what his mommy does for a living. Like, he can't hold a website, and he'll never understand. I mean, it was like total pregnancy hormones, in case you can't tell. But I totally got bitten by the book bug. I was like, he has to have something he can hold in his hands. I wanted him to have this collection of the food that we ate in the first couple of years that he might not remember, or that maybe he refused to eat because he's a toddler. But anyway, so I decided I was maybe going to write a book, but then what I did is I set out this ridiculous list of demands, basically because I was hoping that nobody would say yes to them and then I wouldn't have to write the book. Does anyone else ever do that? Oh man, you said, so on the list was a whole bunch of ridiculous things. I wanted, even though I was going to have a newborn, and I have this site that I update a couple times a week, or I used to, sorry, Victoria happened. And I decided that even though I have the site and the newborn, I wanted this book to have almost all new recipes, because I wanted it to be a value for the people who've been reading the site for a long time and not just a photocopy of the site. So I wanted it to be new recipes, and I wanted to be able to, most cookbooks, they just have like one photo on each recipe, if that. I wanted many. I wanted the process photos that I use on the site. And I wanted to be able to have these long intros that I have on the site because, most cookbooks just have a sentence or two and it's not that exciting. And I wanted to tell people like this story. I think the story of what happened before you started cooking this recipe is so important as it itself. And then my most ridiculous demand, the one I was absolutely certain that was going to ensure that I would never, ever, ever have to write this cookbook, was I'd heard about this thing called lay flat binding. And it means that when you open a book on a kitchen counter, it does not close on you. It stays open, so you're not like in the middle of a recipe. I think I'm the first author who's ever come to publishers and been like, I have a demanding preference for, a certain kind of binding. But it didn't work. I did not scare them off. And then I had to go write the book. And here's the very best demand that I made. And that was that even though I had a website and a newborn, like, no big deal, I got this. I'm going to finish the book in 6 months. So I said, don't even give me more than 6 months because I don't want it. I only need 6 months. I've got this. I'm going to do it. 3 years later, 3.5 years later, 3 years later, the book is here. I like to refer to it as my second baby, clocking in at 336 pages and 2.8 pounds. I think she's a beaut, and I dedicated her to my first baby. And I would love to answer any questions that you have. I'll actually answer the first one before you ask, and that is that no, Jacob is not here tonight. We did bring him to a couple events and in Chicago. And it was very interesting. Do you guys, those flat covers you have on your books? He wanted them. Because it's his book. And he has that book at home, and he wanted to take all the covers off and play. Oh, he's so cute. He wants to play with my book. I'm like, he's not kidding. Like, he's not going to give the book back. And it just he's really lovely, and I would love for him to be running around driving you guys crazy right now. But I did keep him at home tonight. It's also past his bedtime, so anyway. But were there any other more practical questions I could answer? Anyone? If you guys don't ask questions, my cousins are going to start heckling me over here. So please help. Hi.
Hi. How many people do you have working on your website now?
Just me.
Just you?
It's just me. Why, do I seem kind of frazzled? No, it's just me. Jacob helps a little bit. I have a guy who helps me with the tech stuff. So he just kind of tries to make sure the site stays online. And that's about it. So it's a one-person app. I work from home, and I don't have a very big apartment, and my son's there, and it would be sort of weird to have, like, a group of people working there, and I'm just so used to doing it solo. There are definitely days where it'd be a lot easier. Oh, and I have Sarah here, my publicist. And she's not an official Smitten Kitchen employee, but she pretty much, we email about 45 times a day right now, so she should be an unofficial Smitten Kitchen employee. So pretty much just me, then. Hi.
When I have a question about the recipe on your website, I can email you. Is there any way to ask you a question about something in the book? Because I'm sure I'm going to have questions.
What was your name? Can I get your name? What was it?
Dalia.
Dalia asked if there was a way that she could ask me questions about recipes in their book. The answer is no. I do not want to answer any questions. I can't edit it if it's wrong, so I'm just going to hide. No, ask me anything. No, I won't help you. I definitely have thought about trying to set up a place on the site where we could field questions. I haven't been home that much in the last month or so I haven't really gotten to it, but maybe. In the meanwhile, though, feel free to email me. You can ask anything here. I just want you to know, though, that one time I went to this cookbook author's talk at a bookstore, and someone's like, it was like the very first question, this person's like, I made this recipe and it was awful, and I was like, I'm never doing a book tour. I said that, I turned to my husband, I said, I am never doing a book tour. Remember this, I'm never doing a book tour. But here I am, so ask away. But so feel free to ask anything, but email me, or sometimes people have been dropping them in comments of existing posts. I get to them, so happy to help. Hi.
What's your favorite New York restaurant?
Ooh. I was asked what my favorite. Can you guys hear the questions, or should I repeat them? Okay. Yeah. All right, then I won't repeat them. But I was asked what my favorite New York restaurant was. And I don't have a favorite. There are different things I like in different random places, but I'm not like foodieing up when I go out. I'm not like looking for the very best this or that. We, like most New Yorkers, tend to gravitate towards places in our neighborhood. We go to Back 40 a lot. The Redhead is amazing, amazing fried chicken. There's a place, this new place that does this amazing, like, I don't know what it's called. I have a small page on the site where I try to keep track of my favorite things to eat in New York, but it's sorely out of date, but everything on there is still good. It's like Deb's New York or something. And I think I mentioned this Empalone Cucina and a couple other places. That's not a very good answer. I don't have a favorite yet. I'm up to take like nominations though. Hi.
Hi, I'm Barbara. Not a question, but I wanted to tell you I made the pumpkin cheesecake for Thanksgiving, and it was all, the family went crazy.
Okay, I was about to run. I thought there was going to be a Deb-shaped hole in the door. You guys, I can run in heels. I will do it if I have to. Well, I'm so glad, and I'm glad it was a hit. Hi.
Hi, I'm Addie. I'm wondering, what would you say your most recent change in cooking philosophy was? Clearly cooking every day, it probably evolves constantly, but what's your current cooking philosophy?
Addie asked what my current cooking philosophy is, and it's true, it's shifted a lot over time. I think the recipes were probably a little fussier in the beginning because I was a newlywed, but we would go out a lot, and so if we were going to cook at home, it was like something very specific that we deeply craved. It was a one-off thing. It wasn't like I was cooking dinner every night, and I hated recipes that had a lot of leftovers because it's just so annoying to have to eat the same thing 3 or 4 days in a row. I love leftovers now. Leftovers are the best thing ever. If I make like a bolognese, I'll like absolutely intentionally double it, and then it's like finding it in the freezer like a month later is like a gift. You're like, oh good, I don't have to make dinner tonight. And so, oh, believe me, I do not get excited to make dinner every night just because I enjoy cooking, trust me. There's a lot of different opinions on what should be on the table, and they do not always agree with your opinion. I'm sorry, I just really mean to talk on my son when he's not here. My husband never throws broccoli, I just want to make that clear. But yeah, so I have an appreciation of larger scale. I definitely use the crock pot more, and I want to get more crock pot recipes up on the site. And things that just reheat well become things that I really love a lot. And you can still scale it down if you're cooking for just like you and somebody else, but it's nice to have leftovers when you want them. Hi.
Hi, I'm Kat. How many recipes do you make every day?
Oh,
On a daily basis. Get up in the morning and you say,
like half of one. 0 today. The average is I usually just work on one thing at a time. And so if it happens to be dinner, lucky us. Sometimes it's 6 o'clock and we're like, what should we eat for dinner? I'm like, I don't know, I just made muffins today. So I don't want you guys to think I'm like some sort of great homemaker or anything, because it's just not true. Maybe one on average. You know, I might be working on something during the day, and then I might throw together something at the end of the day if it wasn't a dinner dish. It works great though if I am working on something savory and it's kind of done in the afternoon and reheats well, and then we have happy meals for a couple days. But quite often I'm like, I don't know, I made cheese straws. What did you do today? We can't have them for dinner? Uh-huh.
the second part of that question is, do you work on something and perfect it until it's done, and then move on to something else?
Usually I work on something until I'm happy with it. So I might do one round. And of course, I never plan. I mean, I've been doing this for 6 years, and I never plan ahead. So I only shop for one batch of ingredients at a time. And so what usually happens is like, my husband's on his way home, like, butter, we need more butter. Can you stop by like Whole Foods like at rush hour and pick up another chicken because I completely did something terrible to the first one. So I usually just shop for one batch, and then I kind of hope that it'll work out, and of course it never does, so then it's usually the next day that I will try it again. But there are times that I'm just not really happy with the way something's going and I'm sick of it, and then I just table it. I've been trying to get good at like still taking all my notes down, exactly what I think I should do, like a good project manager, saving it, saving the photos, and then coming back to it later. Most of the time it's not nearly as horrible as I remembered it. It was just something stupid, like I put too much lemon in, or it needed one more egg, but I was just frustrated at that point. I was like, I can't even look at you. Hi.
Hi.
The stranger in the front row, my sister.
Going along with being sick of it, is there anything you would never make again because you just can't bear to play with it and tweak it and fiddle with it again?
I need to take a break from pumpkin. I guess everyone feels like that after Thanksgiving. Like you're so pumpkined out. It's like pumpkin spice this and pumpkin spice that. And I mean, like I go through like an entire bottle of cinnamon in the month of November. It's ridiculous. So I think yes, I quite often want to take a break from things. And this happened a lot with the book, which is part of the reason it took 3 years to write. Because I was like, oh, I know I have to finish this recipe, but I can't even look at it. And so I felt like that even as we were doing the edits, I was like so tired of some of those dishes. But now I'm like, oh, that sounds good. Which is a relief, right? That I still think everything sounds good.
Yeah, you need to make those stuffed shells again.
The stuffed shells. Yeah, I made those. Okay, so I made those stuffed shells like 3 times in 1 week. I originally developed that recipe for Bon Appetit, and of course I waited till the last minute to work on it. And I made them a lot. Like a lot. I really couldn't look at them. But now I'm like, that sounds nice. Would you make them for me?
No, but I'll make them.
Oh. Were there any other? Hi.
What's your go-to recipe that you make over and over again?
I roast the bleep out of vegetables. That's like my standard cooking approach to everything. But whenever I have a vegetable, I just chop it up, and I love just roasting things until they're blistery, and usually with olive oil and salt and pepper. I know that's not a recipe, but I'm just saying that's sort of my default cooking. I use the roast chicken, the flat roast chicken a lot. I never really got sick of that when I was working on it. It was just, I really like that recipe. And we actually there are things I make more like different times a year. The harvest roast chicken with the olives and grapes definitely happens a lot in the fall. To me, it's not a spring dish at all. And what else? I make the broccoli slaw all the time. In fact, I was just home for just a few days and I made like a double batch of it because leftovers rule. I make the broccoli slaw a lot, even throughout the year. Huh? Yeah.
What were your favorite or least favorite recipes as a kid?
So I am actually the pickiest eater in the entire world. If you have kids and they're picky eaters and you're like, oh my God, my kid never wants, don't worry about it. Like, they might grow up and be fine, or they might grow up and have to stand in front of a room and announce everything that they're totally weird about. I'm actually quite picky, but I get away with it because nobody notices, because I cook other things and I just deflect attention. Over there. I don't know. I feel bad. I don't want to, like, because if you talk badly about your cooking from growing up, you're kind of usually talking badly about your mom, and that's not cool, because I'm a mom now. But my mom used to cook. She would make the Brussels sprouts so mushy, and I hated them. We hated them so much. There were like tears. Like, I don't you have to eat one. I don't want to eat one. We'll sit at this table until you eat one. So I hated them, and now I love them. And this is something I hear from a lot of people, that like everybody hated Brussels sprouts when they were a kid, and now they're like, they're these delicious little crunchy cabbages. Why didn't I like them? But a lot of it had to do with cooking times, and as actually like every year our cooking times get shorter, to the point that I think we're just pretty much in the next 2 years going to stop cooking our food entirely. It's already happening with some people. There is another question over here. Hi.
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed all the chocolate recipes, the various things. And the biggest problem is that often you'll say something like, the recipe deserves like a good type of chocolate, but I'm a grad student. So what type of good chocolate do you think is affordable in a grad student budget?
Actually, that's so unfair, and I'm so sorry. I really do try to get away from that because I think it's unfair. There are some things where there's a big difference, I think, in chocolate brands, but you should buy whatever you like and that you can afford. Trader Joe's has great inexpensive baking chocolate, and that's really a great go-to on a budget. And I wasn't shopping there until a couple years ago, so maybe older recipes don't acknowledge that you don't necessarily have to pay up for it. I also love, personally, I like buying, there's a brand called, I'm not gonna, it's Guittard. You do not want to hear my French accent. Trust me. They sell these 1 pound boxes, and it's about $8 or $9 for a pound of chocolate, which I think is a good middle price. Obviously, if you're making something with a pound of chocolate, like use the Trader Joe's Pound Plus bar. But for like smaller things, they make the little chocolate discs. You could chop them up for chocolate chip cookies. They melt really nicely. And I think it's a really good, it tastes like very high-end chocolate, but it's a really mid-price. And so that's a nice thing to keep around. And I keep around their white discs, and they could sell them in like 60 and 70 and 72%. So, and my husband likes to eat the milk chocolate ones for a snack. So that's a great brand if you can find it. Hi. Oh, hi. Yeah, sure.
I'm curious about your husband's role in all of this.
Oh, I can talk about him because he's not here. My husband's he's very supportive and very. Did you mean like that, or do you mean like? I mean, he's handsome and.
I assume that he bears the good fortune of being your test pilot.
He is.
And
I mean, I try to get Jacob to be it, but he's just not always up for it.
what about like when you give him something that you're really excited about and you can't wait to give it to him and he pans it?
He never pans anything. He's so good. He's so good. He never pans anything. And he also has like, I mean, I know he would love, like if I was like, I made steak for dinner, he'd be like, yes. But if he came home and I was like, I've got roasted broccoli and brown rice pilaf, he'd be like, sweet, you made dinner. Like, he's so happy. Like he loves vegetables and he doesn't like do cartwheels, well, really over anything, probably for the best, but not over, I wouldn't say he's like, oh, quinoa is sweet, it's my favorite, but he's super supportive, and he's not, I feel like he really likes a lot of the things that I like, or he fakes it really well because he's smart and he knows that this is the way to keep me happy. But no, he's really cool, and what I really do appreciate, because I do hear from a lot of readers, they're like, I want to make this, but my husband always wants meat with dinner, and like, my husband would love meat with dinner, but like he doesn't care. Like it's just, he's usually just happy that somebody made him dinner, and so it's very cool, and that's why we get along so well. Hi.
Hi, I'm Stella.
Nice to meet you.
How do you get your inspiration? How do you decide what to cook on a weekly basis? I find that, when the weekend comes, I'm trying to plan the menu for the week. A lot of times I'm just kind of
Hunger. Cravings. It can come from anywhere. Sometimes it's something I had at a restaurant that I loved. Sometimes it's something I had at a restaurant that was not bad, but I was sort of hoping it would be a different way. And then, I'll be sitting at the table with my husband. I'll be like, I really think that they should have done this. He's like, well, and that's kind of like, I guess I know what I have to do. And sometimes they come to me. It usually just happens when I'm thinking about when I'm supposed to be working, or I guess it is my work, but I'm supposed to be doing something useful and I'm like daydreaming. And then I was, a couple weeks ago, I was on my way to LA and I was like, it was morning and I love rye toast with breakfast. And I was like, I need to make a rye bread English muffin. Like, wouldn't that be so much fun? Jotted it down, it goes in the list. And then I kind of keep this really long list of like really, it's like 10 pages of things, just ideas. Some of them are gonna work, some of them are not, but just like whims. And I try to take notes and just get back to them. I sort things by month. Is that weird? I think of different foods for like January than I do for May, and of course seasonality. So I tend to, and so if it's December and I'm like, I am in such a rut, I don't feel like making anything that I normally make, that's when I would go to the list and try to find something that I haven't gotten to yet. Is that how? Okay, good. Hi.
Hi, Deb. I was wondering if you read other cookbooks for inspiration, and if so, which ones are your favorite?
Absolutely, I love other cookbooks. I really love Julia Child. I mean, it's sort of a boring response, but not really. I really think that everybody, even if you think you don't like French cooking, everyone should have a copy of The Mastering the Art of French Cooking, because I still go back and I look at it all the time, just for basics, for different preparations. I mean, like her recipe for brown mushrooms is like the most amazing brown mushrooms I've ever eaten in my entire life. And it uses very simple ingredients. So I really like the classics. I also have a copy of Silver Spoon, which is sort of like the Italian joy of cooking, but it's even more simplified. And when I'm approaching an Italian recipe, I often look there for the framework of how it's used before I go off on my own. But there are also a lot of books out this fall that I really like. I love the new Ottolenghi book, Jerusalem. It's so gorgeous. I love the new Mile End cookbook. It's this Montreal Jewish delicatessen that's in Brooklyn, so you probably get what it's. There's a lot of meat and pickles. What else? I loved the Sprouted Kitchen cookbook. Sprouted Kitchen is a really beautiful food blog and focus on sort of whole and natural foods, but I didn't feel like anything was overly wholesome. It just, everything looks really beautiful and creative. So, what? So, Yeah, so those are 3 that I like this fall. What else? Oh, I just picked up, I'm gonna just keep going. I'm basically gonna sell you every cookbook of my own tonight. I just picked up this Roots cookbook at a book fair that I was doing, and it's amazing. It's like 200 recipes. I'm like, how did she do that? It's her 17th cookbook. It turns out that's how, because I mean, I did like maybe 105, and it took me 3 years. Can you imagine how long it would take me to do 200 recipes? Anyway, if you live in a cool climate, as we do, most of the year, you don't have much of a growing season, and when you go to markets, it's just root vegetables. And I know how to use a bunch of them, but I wouldn't say I have 200 go-to recipes for various roots. So it's a really fun cookbook if you want to find ways to eat those local nubby delights this winter. It's beautiful too. Okay, that's a good start, I think. Hi.
Hi. What 5 foods would you take to a deserted island?
Oh, that's just one bourbon. Butter, bread, shallots, Dijon, champagne. I just said 2 boozes. Like, I'm basically not talking about a desert island. I'm talking about Paris. I hope you understand why. Sorry, it was not a very mature answer. I want to take the tension off my 2 alcohols out of 6 options. Anyone? Hi.
Hi, how are you? I just came across your recipe, your mother's recipe for apple cake, which I'm going to try this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's sort of a 2-part question. I'm wondering if you did anything to the recipe, or is it pure? And I notice occasionally you just like tweak things ever so slightly, and I guess, does that happen often, or, I mean, it's so easy to try to like enhance it.
Well, I guess I have a question for you first. Can I reverse? Is it your mom's apple cake recipe too?
No.
Because it is a lot of people's apple cake.
Really?
Yeah, it's a lot of people's moms. But it's my mom, and I'm up here, so it gets to be my mom today. But but no, actually, no. I'm saying because it's one of these recipes. It's sort of one of these old German Jewish cake recipes. It's parve. It doesn't have any dairy or obviously meat in it, because that would be kind of gross. and it's a very easy to make. You can use it with cheap ingredients and everyday apples, and it doesn't matter. It always works really well. And so I think it's definitely been passed down in a lot of families. And so because of that, you see a lot of variations of it, but most of them come back to the same structure. And one of the things that I changed is that I added directions, because I'm sure you guys have seen in a lot of old recipes, like they just think like, here's the ingredient list, do it. And that doesn't. I'm very into directions. I like to really walk you through it in great detail. So I didn't actually change a whole lot to it. No, actually, I think I really kept it because it's really good as it is. And I think with a recipe that old, I'm not going to mess with it unless it really didn't work. And if it really didn't work that well, I wouldn't be coming to you 60 years later either.
I love the shot of the handwritten card too. That was neat.
Yeah, I think my mom had like maybe a couple directions, but it's really just like mix everything, pour in, so it's not. My mom has beautiful handwriting too.
Time for 2 more questions.
Okay, somebody else pick, because I'm not going to be the background. Okay, fine, I'll pick. Yeah. Hi.
How many times do you usually make a recipe before you think it's ready to go?
I haven't made these yet. I was hoping you'd let me know if they work. Whoops. It can be anywhere from like 2 times to, I say 2, but sometimes it's 1. Let's say it's the site, and I am like, I have always wanted to make this person's this, and it's perfect. It might just be once or twice, but that's usually when I'm working from an established recipe structure, or I know I really just want to put the light on somebody else's classic perfect recipe. But for the book, I was going much further out of my comfort zone, really looking at things that I'd never figured out how to make before, because I like a challenge. And so it could be anywhere from 6 times. I would say it was probably the minimum between myself and getting, I brought a recipe tester in for a few of them. I'm not going to tell you which ones didn't. And it could, there were things like those lemon bars and the fig challah that I think I made it like 20 times. I was so close, but I just didn't feel, I make it until I'm confident that it will absolutely work, even like no matter what. If there's something I'm even a little bit worried about, I won't do it. I won't share it yet. It just gets tabled, so. It's a range. Wait, okay. Hi.
Hi, I volunteer at Connecticut Children's in Hartford. I bake every week when I come in. Today I walked in with your raspberry bars, and everybody clapped.
Oh my goodness, you're a star. That's awesome.
I baked a lot of.
Did you bring me any? Oh, it's fine. I'm just
But
kidding.
I don't cook any of your recipes. I just bake everything that you make.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. I'm glad that they liked it. That's the raspberry breakfast bars?
The Austrian shortbread.
Oh my God, that was an old gourmet recipe. That's such a fun one for the holidays. Have you guys made that?
No.
Okay, so it's basically this. It's not in the book, so I'm going to tell you about it anyway. You make this beautiful shortbread dough and you freeze it. And then you run it through, I use the food processor, you grate the whole thing, and so you have these fluffy pile, it looks like cheese, but it's actually shredded shortbread. And you put half of the sprinklings in a pan, and then you cover it with raspberry jam, and then you put the other half in, and you bake it. And you end up with this fluffy shortbread, and I like to cut it in little squares and dust it with powdered sugar, and it is a hit. It uses a lot of butter. It's not in the book, I'm just being mean, it's on the website. It's an old recipe from gourmet, and it's really lovely. It's really great this time of year. I know I'm supposed to be talking about the book, but it's such a great recipe. There are good recipes in the book too, one or two. Are we out of time? Hi. I'm just going to keep going until they pull me off with a cane.
Congratulations to your website and your blog. It's fantastic and super, super inspiring. Can you just talk for a second about the beautiful photographs? Because it sounds like you're not that confident with your camera, but yet the photographs are just, they suck you right in.
Well, thank you. And I'm not just kidding. I actually don't know what the buttons on the camera do. What I mean is that there are a lot of people who take photography very seriously, and I can't have a conversation with any of them because I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm like kind of a hack. I always joke I'm not a real photographer. I just play one on the internet, but of course not. There's a book. I know what I'm looking for though. I use a portrait lens of 50 millimeter, like just a basic lens, and I'm just trying to take pictures, really sharp pictures. I want it to be clear. I want it to be unstyled because I don't know about you, but I really like to show food on the counter when it comes out of the oven or right before you eat it because I want it to look the way it will in your home and not the way it would in a photo studio. I also don't have a prop closet, so there's that. A prop pile, prop mess. But I try to use there's a window in the kitchen. It's about the only thing the kitchen is going for it, is that there's a window, and I just use natural light. And there's this really hideous, it's really hideous in person. The counter is like plastic. Sometimes people are like, who's your counter guy? What kind of granite did you use? And I'm like, it's a rental. It's like the cheapest thing you can put down. Like they would have paid less, but they couldn't. So it's actually quite ugly in person. But because it's dark, I think the food pops a little bit on it. So, and that's it. That's the whole thing. I don't have any lights or scrims or any of those things that you're supposed to have. I just try to get the best picture I can, and I tend to work really quickly. Like I'll just go 1, 2, 3, and then I just move on and hope it works. So sometimes it does. Sometimes. Thank you.